Hello, folks. Today is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, and welcome to What's Happening Dracut. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are happy that you could join us tonight, and as we present our talk show, What's Happening Dracut. We are coming to you live from the awesome studios located at DATV here in Dracut. I'm your host, John Zimini, for this evening, and I have been a resident of Dracut and a taxpayer of Dracut for over 23 years. I am a community activist. I have been a public servant. I worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for 37 years. I'm a political junkie for over 58 years. And I have served in the town of Dracut as a member of the Board of Selectmen for 9 years, having been elected to 3 consecutive terms. And I like to boast about how I topped the ticket in those 3 terms, in those 3 elections. I am obviously a political animal. I will hopefully bring you the political side of most things that happen in town, keep the conversation interesting, fast-paced, and stimulating. Now let me introduce you to our co-host for this evening, Phil Thibault, who is a local professional architect. He brings a mountain of experience in municipal government. He has served on many, many boards, and I'm going to let him get into it. How are you this evening, Philip?
I'm well, thank you. Exhausted, though.
Exhausted.
Busy day.
Oh, I guess. We're all a little bit busy, and we're a little bit tired about what's going on here. Our second co-host is Gordy Scott, and he's a computer operations engineer and has been an activist in the community for many, many years, particularly interested in the budget as well as school affairs. He's been a youth and high school basketball coach, and he also serves as a referee, I understand, yes. Right, Gordy?
That's correct.
How are you this evening?
Very good. Season's come to an end, so I want to just congratulate the Dracut Middies. They won the Division 1A Boys Championship for Merrimack Valley, so that was a big...
That's awesome.
The girls made it to the finals, but they lost in the final game, so... sports in Dracut did very well this winter. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Really. You can join us this evening by calling 978-957-4243, and we'll repeat that several times during the evening. But I wanted to introduce you to another one of our co-hosts tonight. He's a young man. He's a junior at Dracut High School. He is politically active on the national front. And he brings a whole different perspective, and he's trying to learn more about Dracut and Dracut politics as he gets a little bit more into this. His name is Richard Silvio.
And he's got a bright future, too, by the way.
Well,
very bright future.
Really buttering me up over here. Good evening, guys. How have you been, John?
I've been very good, thank you.
Wonderful.
Very good, We have a jam-packed show here this evening, but before we get to the meat of our whole show, I wanted to take a moment to remember Sean Kelly's dad. Unfortunately, his dad passed away this week, and we send you our condolences, Sean, and we hope that you'll make it through the next couple of days and or the next week. But he is our resident weatherman, and he is here tonight with a special presentation for us and give us the forecast for the future. Sean, take it away.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me tonight. And here is the forecast starting off with tonight. We're going to drop down into the upper 20s tonight in southern Merrimack Valley, parts of southern New Hampshire too. 28 degrees for the low temperature tonight for Dracut. Clear to partly cloudy, so we'll get some more clouds that will move in through the overnight hours. And the wind's not that bad either for tonight at least, 5 to 10 miles an hour. As we head into Thursday, the sun will be back with us. We'll have a few more clouds, more than what we did for today at least. 37 degrees, partly sunny. And Thursday night, we're going to drop it back down into the teens. Here's a look at your exclusive 8-day forecast. 30s for a majority of the week ahead, at least for the 8 days. Monday we'll watch right now. There is a chance for some mixing going on, maybe some rain and snow. Right now it does look minor at the moment. And after that, we're going to be surging into the 50s as we head to next Wednesday. And that's it for now, everyone. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Sean. What a weather report that is. But I think the weather's starting to change a little bit for us and heading for the good side of things, because there's only a few more weeks before we hit, March 20th is the date that we switch over and say that we're going into spring?
Oh, spring, the
Equinox?
equinox.
Is that the 20th?
20th or 21st, it's one of
Okay.
those.
But before we go any further, I did want to mention a very special person to a lot of people in Dracut that passed away this week. And we were saddened to hear of the passing of Maureen Wilkie. She is the mother of school committee member Joe Wilkie. Maureen was a great individual, a loving mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. She was revered in her family, and she was a community activist for many, many years before she got ill. Her and her husband Joe, who passed before her, and I'm sure she will be greeted at the pearly gates when she arrived. And she was a figure in town, particularly working in with the elderly, and I believe she worked in the school department offices for a number of years. And she was politically active, having been involved in a lot of politics across the years. And we send our condolences to Joe and his family, and we wish you well, and we pray that the soul of Maureen Wilkie be accepted into heaven and be greeted by the angels. Anyone else?
Well said. That's
said.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the meat of the thing here today. We got a packed show. We have so many things to talk about. As I said earlier, if you'd like to call in, certainly do that. We're at 978-957-4243, and you're welcome to call in and be on the air with us and discuss what we're talking about. We also have a email address that if you want to email us something and you're interested in a particular show, or you want for us to investigate, we can turn our red hot man on the street onto the case. Richard Silvio, he'll get out and do a little background work on it and get us some information on it. And that is what's happening Dracut at gmail.com. But before we go any further, we're going to give you our updated COVID report. And that is, we turn to Gordy Scott.
Well, thanks, John. Glad to be back in the studio again with you guys after a few weeks off, so that's good. So here's our COVID report. If you can bring up the screen for our March 3rd. So we're going to look at tests today. So we have as of actually yesterday, because I didn't get the numbers right before we came on air today, but as of yesterday, these numbers are valid. So in Dracut, we have a little over 50,000 tests. So that's kind of amazing to me, as we only have a little under 30,000 people that live in Dracut, and we've done 50,000 tests. So a lot of those people have got tested multiple times. In Massachusetts, we're a little over 16 million tests, and in the United States, we're over 357 million tests now. That's more than we have people. So it's interesting, very, very interesting. And Massachusetts has about 7 million people, and we've done double so in Massachusetts alone. So you remember on TV, there was never enough tests, but the data, the science shows that we have enough tests.
357 million tests. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I've had 6 tests, at least 5 or 6 tests, because where I coach, you're required at certain points of the year to have tests done.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see that. Obviously it's going to be more because people get tested more.
Right. So now we're going to move to cases. Cases in Dracut, we're up to over 3,000 now, 3,009. That's from the last weekly report from the state. In Massachusetts, we're up to over 551,000 cases now confirmed in Massachusetts, and in the U.S., we're over 28.5 million cases that have been confirmed. So that moves us over to hospitalizations. You can see now we don't get numbers from hospitalizations for the town level, so these are estimated. So we have approximately 150. That's based on the percentages from the state and from federal. And in Massachusetts, we have a little over 28,000 people that have been hospitalized due to COVID-19. And in the U.S., it's almost 2.5 million people have been hospitalized due to COVID-19.
Wow. Well, that's quite a report. Thank you very much for it. Go ahead.
Then we got deaths, so we still have 3. I can't find any more. I know there's been some stuff going around social media. There's been more than 3 deaths in Dracut, but I haven't been able to find any information on that. So the latest number I still have is 3. In Massachusetts, we're 16,182, and in the U.S., it's 516,000. And as you remember, a lot of people gave Trump a lot of grief for having 400,000 deaths in a year. So since Biden has taken office, there's been over 100,000 deaths in just over a little over a month. So, and he's had a vaccine. So we'll see if that number starts to trail off with the vaccines.
Gordy, while we're on that subject of vaccine, and I know you have more to do, and I'm not trying to interrupt you, but you know that Biden the other day said that we will have enough vaccine to inoculate the entire population of the United States by May. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what.
Now that's amazing. That's a month later than what Donald Trump said would happen. Donald Trump said that we will have enough vaccine by April. So I think Joe Biden might be slowing it down a little bit. Go back to your report.
All right, so the last one we have is for vaccines. This when I looked at this number surprised me a little bit. Massachusetts, there's been just over 2 million vaccines that have been shipped. 1.3, we'll just say, million people have their first dose, and just over 565,000 have their second dose, which gives us a total of just under 2 million doses in total for the state of Massachusetts, which is 18% of the population.
I was going to say, what's the population?
Which is surprising because you wouldn't think it's that much, but people with their second dose, it's only 8%.
Wow.
But you can see that a large, one out of every 5 people have been vaccinated at this point, so that's pretty good.
So if you want to zoom in on camera on my little button here, guys.
Vaccinated?
Can you zoom in on this? Can you get in any closer? No? Here it comes, folks.
Wait for it.
So, wait for it. So I've been vaccinated, folks, and I went to Fenway Park. I got my first shot last Friday, and my next shot is coming up in 3 weeks, and we'll see if I had any reaction. I didn't have any reaction other than a sore arm and maybe a little bit of tiredness, but I attribute it to my age, the tiredness.
And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is the U.S. There's been over 120 million vaccines that have been shipped. 78.6, I was surprised to learn that 78.6 people have had their first dose. 26.2 has had their second dose, so that puts 105 million doses in people's arms, which is actually 32% of the population of the United States. So, a lot of people are criticizing the governor of Texas for opening the state, but if you've got 32% of the people with at least one dose in their arm, it should be time to open up, because I think there's at least another 30% of the population that have already had it. So, so that puts us at over the 60% mark. So
I don't know, Phil.
Safe.
Have you heard what I heard the other day, and maybe you didn't? Maybe Richard heard this somewhere, that we may be approaching herd immunity a lot quicker than people think. Have you heard that, Richard?
I have not, but I find that surprising. It's a good thing that more people are getting the vaccine, but I really can't believe it's going that quickly.
Yeah. Have you heard that?
I have heard that because of those who have had it. So there's a built-in immunity, at least in the short time for that, than the vaccines. From what I understand, it's nearby.
And Gordy, your wife works in a hospital like my daughter. Casey works in a hospital. They're both my daughter's a nurse, and you obviously your wife works there as a care person. But my daughter was telling me that there's a surprising amount of people who are coming in for other things with no symptoms, being tested for COVID because they're testing everybody that comes through the door, right, and they're finding out that they are asymptomatic. So there's a huge thought process from some of the people in the medical community that there are millions of people out there that have already had the and that they have
they just didn't know they had it.
They don't know. That's
As a matter of fact, I just recently seen a video stating that your blood type may actually have some effect on COVID. So
really?
Those with type O blood are less likely to contract it or have serious symptoms, as opposed to those with A, B, and AB type 1.
So, we're at the point of our show where we're going to get into some of the meat of this show, folks. And we want to talk a little bit about what's happening here in Dracut for the upcoming elections. You know, as we told you in our last show, we kind of broke a story that was a heavy rumor around town about the chairman of the board, Jesse Forcier, moving out of town. Now, we broke the story, and we haven't had any pushback on it. We've had pushback on a lot of other things because that's what they do, but this one is remarkably no pushback on, and it makes me think that the story is true. And even, you know, we have the only part of the story that they're pushing back on is whether or not he's currently living in Dracut. Now, we've done some research. We've heard of a couple of addresses that he might be living at, and we've tried to figure that out. And obviously, he's a public official. His address should be listed somewhere. It's not listed anywhere. It's not on any of the websites. It's not listed anywhere where he is currently. And you know, if you can Google anybody's name and get information on them, and most of the stuff comes up with Parker Road.
Parker Road.
Now, you know, as a public official, he should be listed somewhere, right? So a citizen can find him.
Write him a letter or whatever.
No, anything. So we did a little research on campaign finance too, and we found that there was nothing on the website for last year for Jesse Forcier. Do you find that strange, Phil?
Well, there's a hefty fine that should be going with that.
Well, yeah, who gets the fine and who administers it?
So typically, I believe it's through the clerk's office. The clerk's office is in charge of campaign finances in town.
And the clerk's office would be ready to fine the chairman of the Board of Selectmen for not filing campaign reports.
I typically found her to essentially to be casual. I mean, for everybody.
Which is fine.
Which is fine.
For everybody.
I have to admit that one of my campaign finance reports went in a little late. I forgot about it. It was on my desk and underneath papers, and it was a few days late.
Well, I mean, it's late, Phil.
Well,
2 days late,
again, right. Now you're what, 2 months late, which is significant enough, especially when everybody else has filed the report.
Exactly. And I mean, there are periodic, even though when you're not in an election, there are periodic times you have to file. So, and we can't find anything for that. So,
I guess I'll just add to that his 2019 report still had him holding over $2,000 in his campaign finance.
Amazing, huh?
Right. So there is cash there.
Yeah. So he has to report it.
Right, unless he essentially, I forget the term, retired or whatever.
Yeah.
Dissolved.
And you know,
but you need to show. So you need to show where that money goes.
Exactly.
Afterwards. So.
And as we all know, other than Gordy, because he hasn't got the stones to go on the ballot, that's kind of a challenge throwing a contact down. Jen, I apologize. I know you're going to come. You're going to be mad at me. But the bottom line is, Gordy, if you have a campaign fund and you have money in it, if the campaign owes you money, you could take it out and pay yourself back, as long as you have always reported it as a campaign finance donation, not a donation, but a liability, right?
Right.
So, when are you going? We'd like, in this show tonight, you're going to get pressure because there are openings coming.
Yeah.
That are going to be good. That you could really run for. You'd be a great candidate and a great person to serve the community, as would Mr. Silvio.
Absolutely. I have a few years. At least I have a few years left for an excuse. He has nothing.
You have a few years left, exactly. Hey, the other gentleman that I'd love to see run eventually, if not now, Joey Bigos. Is Bigos, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's watching, by the way, tonight. Hi, Joey. We're saying hello to you.
I try. I've talked to him about it, but he just, he has really no interest for town politics, which I can't blame him. I guess it does get dry at some points. Well, no, to the outsider, to the outside.
Yeah.
But he's definitely planning on Senate.
But
it also has the largest impact on anybody's life.
Absolutely.
Right,
politics.
being on the, right, exactly, because you are
Absolutely.
really setting the tone. But getting back to this, I just wonder what the secret is. What is the secret, Jesse, Gordy?
I don't know.
Why? Why would you
What I
not
want to know is if you don't live in the town, are you allowed to still hold office? I'm not sure. I don't know what the
well,
bylaws
you're going to
say.
find that out in Lowell because there's currently in the Lowell situation with Bob Hoey resigning, which we can get into later on this evening. But Bob Hoey resigning, now there's the next in line guy. They don't like him, so they're finding reason to not seat him.
I mean, other than being a resident of Brookline?
Yeah, that's what they're alleging,
Yeah.
and I think there might be some truth to that. And if there is, he shouldn't be seated. And if I were him, I'd be a little bit careful of election fraud. You know, especially if they're going down that road. So who knows? I'd be a little bit afraid of that. So why isn't he resigning, Phil, now? Do you have any inkling why he might not be resigning now?
Well, I mean,
he is.
certainly one theory would be that you would be essentially setting up an election with two candidates, one to fill the remaining unexpired term and one for the term being coming up that's being held by Joe Derocco at the moment.
Sure. So if you're Joe Derocco, Richard, you wouldn't want another election on the same ballot with you.
Oh, absolutely not. No, even the most crooked parties can only handle so much.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. But Gordy, the reason for that is it's two separate seats. And one is the unexpired term, as Phil said, and the other one is for a regular term, and that's what's his name? Joe Derocco. I'm having a Biden moment.
Wait, I have a card.
I know, maybe I should look at the card.
Ooh, the teleprompter, John.
So Joe Derocco obviously doesn't want two elections on the same ballot because his group, his cabal, wants to be able to control who gets elected. And they can't run two people on the same ballot and expect to win two seats. And with Joe up, and then
Johnny Joyce may be running.
if Jesse resigns and he goes on this ballot, that would be two elections to be run at the same time. That would spread their forces thin. The campaign headquarters would be real busy.
Right.
You know, and they would have to. It's just next to impossible. I don't know many people that can run two people in an election and win. I don't know many.
No,
groups.
especially when one is an open seat.
Exactly.
It becomes
exactly.
difficult.
So that's why they don't want to do that. And as far as I'm concerned, that is a bad move on the part of any elected official to be setting it up so that politically it can be controlled. And albeit there's nothing illegal about it, I'm not saying there's anything illegal about it, it's shady at best, and worst, it's really not criminal, but it's just a bad thing to be able to do that and control it, and it's going to cost the town money. It'll cost the town money. Does anybody know how much it costs to run an election?
About $15,000 for an election. Yeah.
Jen Scott says, "Not happening, John. Not happening." Jen, are you talking to my wife? Are you talking to my wife? Yeah, Joey Bigo says that Joe Derocco's a fraud. I couldn't agree with you more, Joey. Angel's on here, and and she sends her best to Joe Wilkie and his family. And I like to let people know because I know they like to hear their names out there. And there's all kinds of people watching, and if you want to be mentioned, chime in.
Hey, if you don't mind me kind of going a little off topic on this, but it still has with the Board of Selectmen. I don't know if you caught the last meeting. About 42 minutes into the hour-long meeting, under new business, Jesse brought up the fact that he's been hearing from developers and engineers that for some reason the town is being perceived as anti-business. Now, and he said it with some shock, and I nearly fell off my chair. I'm screaming at the television. I told you years ago.
Yeah. You have personal and professional experience.
And one person once asked me, what's the most difficult towns that you or communities that you've worked in? I said, Boston's difficult, but the number one tough one is Dracut. And I'm a homeboy.
If you're outside of Dracut, It's common knowledge.
Yeah. So, I mean, he had been mentioning essentially, he referred to as a couple of boards, and I believe in particular he was referencing the planning board and conservation, because conservation shot down something that Dracut was asking him to do. But likewise, if Dracut's not going to do the right thing, then the Conservation Commission should shoot it down.
So having...
So,
Go ahead.
Just to finish up, he actually said during the meeting that these committees should realize who they're working for. And it's like, I couldn't believe that. These boards are set up to be autonomous from any other politics in town, so that nobody controls them. Mind you, when they're being appointed, and typically all these boards are being appointed by the town manager, you should have an understanding of who you're appointing. Certainly, they should be people. If you want business friendly, you should have people who are business friendly. So it just shocked me. It was like the scene out of Casablanca where Captain Renault said, "I'm shocked that there's gambling going on in this establishment," and then the waiter comes over with his winnings. I was just shocked.
So, what do you think, panel? And just give me a wave of the hand if you have an answer to this question. What do you think the undercurrent of that whole thing is? Because if you have a political mind and you're familiar with what goes on in Dracut, or when in politics at all, then you know there's a political undercurrent to this. What do you think that... Phil, you might have it already because you're a political animal like me, but I'm wondering if either Gordy or our youngster here, young rookie, knows what I'm talking about. The political undercurrent, what do you think it is? Oh, we got to pause. No? Phil, do you know what it is?
To be honest, I'm somewhat dumbfounded by the whole thing because,
Okay.
of course, Jesse was complaining about the other boards being anti-business, and I'm saying to myself, look 2 seats over. Joe Derocco is the worst anti-business person in this town.
So my first instinct is they're after somebody.
Besides me?
Yes, they're after somebody. They have an agenda where there's somebody on one of those boards or on both boards that isn't following the party line. So they want to get rid of that person. And that's the first step. So isn't that what they're doing to us every other week with DATV bashing and John Zimini bashing and Phil Thibault bash? But they don't like it when you expose them for all of their stuff that they're doing in town and getting away with. Oh, then well, I'm a private citizen, or you're going out, you're attacking my business. But it's okay for them to attack DATV, which is a private business. It's okay for them to do that because it's a hypocrisy. It stinks from Washington right down to the very, very lowest level of all, right? And you're right about Joe Derocco, right?
I will say, in my past experience, I've on the planning board, and I think as on the board of selectmen, Jesse Forcier, I think, has been fairly business friendly.
Yes.
For the and I never had any qualms with him on the planning board, certainly.
Which shocks you why he's carrying somebody's water to do that, to go after somebody. Somebody on those boards, and I think we could easily deduct who they are, they're not happy with.
Well, watch the news. They're going to see a lot of pieces being shuffled around.
Yeah, where people are going to get not reappointed, or they're going to say, well, I've had enough of this and I'm going to resign or retire or whatever. And, unlike you or I, Phil, they can try to push us up, but we're not going away easy, right? We're not going away easy. So if we're done on the Board of Selectmen, I do want to talk a little bit about the Good Old Boys and the Good Old Boy Network. We know who they are. We know who Town Hall West is. It's not a secret if you're in the political realm in this town. So part of this whole thing of holding the election back, or the resignation back, all stems to that they have another candidate that they want to put in there somebody that they can manipulate. Control is a good word, manipulate, or let's say influence, cajole, whatever you want to call it. So our research has shown that there were 2 individuals who were approached to run in a special election should there be a resignation. Now, we've confirmed it with several people, so we're going to announce tonight who they are. One person is a woman by the name of Corvos. I forget her first name. Do you remember her name? She's a former
Anastasia
Corvos, who is, I don't think I met her, but she comes from a very fine family, Dracut family, you know. Steve Corvos' daughter.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Yeah.
Done a lot for Dracut in terms of building and developing in Dracut, and you've had a project for him?
Yeah. I've had some professional workings with Stacy, as I've come to know her.
Stacy, right.
I think she's a fine person.
So that's two people, and I've had that from several sources. So it's not strange that she's telling people or said that people have approached her to run. Okay. The other person that has been approached to run would not confirm nor deny, and I've texted him several times, and he's now the new off-week host on Saturday Morning Lives. And I think he's a good guy. I like him. I would be very suspect of him now because I think that he would be in the pocket of the good old boys. And Joe, I love you, but it's just a fact of life. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So Joe Espinola is the other guy that has been mentioned. I did give him the courtesy, and over a month ago I did this, and I mentioned it at our last show. And he will more than likely be a candidate for selectman if there's a resignation. But I don't think he'll be the only candidate. There'll be other candidates. I mean, the last time there was a special election was, I think, when I ran.
Well, so
did you run a special?
When Jack DiTilio passed away.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, that was the first time I had run,
Right.
and that was a long time.
so-
that was a long time ago.
Yes, that was after I was elected. That's true.
I believe so.
That's true. And Kenny Kuna won that.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
so my
correct.
memory is not
And
far
believe
off.
it, we became fast friends.
Best
I mean,
friends,
it's so uncommon
Great
for
guy.
that to happen these days.
Great guy. He's a great guy, you know. And but then you get to what do you call it? Joey Espinola running. But before that, when you ran, I ran in a special election, and Joe Derocco ran, and it was a November election during a presidential primary, a presidential election, and in no lesser terms, I got my butt handed to me. I got over 5,100 votes, and Joe got over 6,500 votes or something like that. So, I mean, I lost by a substantial amount to a guy who was quite popular at the time. That's 16, 17 years ago. And but ever since then, Joe and I have been oil and water, because, God forbid, you had the nerve to run against Joe Derocco. And now that's what you're suffering from, the stigma of having run against Joe Derocco.
And likewise, my clients.
And your clients, or lack of clients.
Yeah. Well, it often pains me to say this, but when somebody calls me up and they actually, from Dracut, a businessman or a homeowner wants to do an addition or something like that, I said, you know who I am, right? And I said, are you sure you want to put up with that?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to go easy through the town. And they
So
said, we want you because we know we're going to hear it straight from you.
So do you know about the cabal at Town Hall West? You know what the cabal is? You know?
No.
The cabal you got to get up with this stuff.
I know, I've been busy.
You've been busy, but the cabal at Town Hall West is the cabal that has been involved in so many elections over the last few years, and particularly they've been headquarters for many, many years of many elections. And they boast, and rightfully so, they've got a machine. They do a good job of getting people to vote and getting people out to vote. They have sign locations up the yin-yang, and they're a hard bunch to beat, but it's not unbeatable, because I did it 3 times in a row. Even when they sent out packets and anonymous letters about John Zimini and my past, my alleged bad past from Chelsea, Massachusetts. But we can get into that on another day. So we're very interested in seeing how that all works out, and hopefully we're wrong, and that there isn't a special election, but because that'll cost the town some money. The other thing we're going to talk about a little bit about is what's going on with the firefighter Justin George and the MRI report, which we're going to get into. But I just wanted to close out one more thing about the election, because we had breaking news today, and we broke the story after it was broken on another website, and particularly a Facebook page, Betsy Lurvy Murphy has tendered her resignation to the Dracut School Committee. And I'm going to say a couple things on a personal level. Betsy and I have not always gotten along, and we've had some rough patches, and we've had some good patches. I've supported her, she's supported me. I haven't supported her, she hasn't supported me. But I will say this, that Betsy Murphy's heart is always in the right place. She's always done the right thing in her mind for the town of Dracut and for the children of Dracut. So, Betsy Murphy is resigning effective April 5th, but the town will lose a person who is a warrior for the children. Whether you agree with how she does it or agree with the policies or not, she's a warrior for the children. And she's done a good job. And again, I've been pretty hard on her in some things, and we've all taken a little whack at her once in a while, and she's taken one at me. But I'm going to tell you right now, I've always respected her, and I've respected her as a public servant, and I think that the town will miss her. I think she's an intelligent lady. I wish her well in her future. I believe, Phil, she's moving to Florida, I think.
I'm not exactly sure where.
That's part of the rumor anyways.
Yeah, certainly I'd like to pass on that we became very good friends. Unbeknownst to both of us, we shared some mutual friends going way back, and we discovered that when we were on Facebook, and we were kind of responding and replying to the same person, and it's like, well, how do you know this person? And so we became very good friends after that, and I certainly enjoyed my time with Betsy when she was here at DATV on the board of directors. She was here at a confusing time for a number of people, and she certainly, I think she tried to do her best understanding things, and to be honest, there was probably a lot of people trying to understand things, and I very much enjoyed having her here during that time.
Yeah. Do you know Betsy Murphy at all?
I do not know who she is.
You don't know, and you're a junior in high school, and you don't know who your school committee member is.
Well,
I'm giving you an assignment for the next time. You need to get up with who's your school committee members. And
next time I come on, I'll quiz you. I'll know the answers that well.
Okay, you know who the superintendent is.
Stephen Stone, absolutely.
Okay.
Have to.
So you know that's important. So now the question comes: how do they replace Betsy Murphy? How do you think they replace Betsy Murphy? If you could do a little research for me, Gordy, and bring up the charter, the town charter, and see what it says on there. But Phil, I think you and I have a little bit of background on it, but I'm not quite sure of how to replace a school committee person. Some will say that it's an appointed position that the school board appoints it. I don't think that's the way it is.
No,
I think it's an election, or you just don't fill the seat, given how much time is left on the unexpired term.
So she would have about a year left.
Okay.
I thought my recollection was that it was a joint appointment, so both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee would meet in a joint session and essentially appoint somebody to fill the remainder of the term.
That's where my confusion is. That might be so, and that's why I'm asking Gordy to look it up for us. Because I know that it's in the charter for the regional school that's how it happens. And it happens with the regional school and the Board of Selectmen, or the regional school. If it's in the past it was, if it's a town's representation, it's the regional school and the school committee, I believe, and the Board of Selectmen. So I don't think we did that during the time I was on the Board of Selectmen. But
So I suppose if it's an election, is there sufficient time still available to
get it on the ballot.
get it on the ballot?
Yeah, that's I don't know.
Because nomination papers can still be obtained. They have to be back in, I believe, March 15th. So there would be time for somebody who would be interested but that would be for the remainder of the term, not for a full 3-year term.
Sure. Exactly. Exactly, because we have staggered elections for a reason, right? The charter spells out the staggered elections because you don't want a full sweep, according to our charter.
Yeah,
which I disagree with.
Full sweeps could be a good thing.
Right. I'm liking the model of Lowell, by the way, with districts, but that's a discussion for another day. So you've got a possible 2 seats on the Board of Selectmen coming up. You've got a resignation on the school board. You have an announced candidate or announced person who's a school committee member who has announced already that she's not running. That's Sue Kufagafas. She's not running for re-election. And speculation is that Joe Wilkie has been muttering to friends that he may not be a candidate. So you could have 3 seats on the on the school board that could change in less than a year, 6 months. And you could also have a seat or 2 on the Board of Selectmen. Yeah. Any speculation on anybody running for the Board of Selectmen against Joe? I just don't see it.
Johnny Joyce.
Johnny Joyce. Can't win.
But he may run.
I mean, like I said last time, Johnny Joyce is a character. He's a good guy. Have you talked to him?
No, I haven't talked to him in a few months. So
please let him stay out of it. Let him stay out of it, even if it's make believe. Let it stay out of it. So I'm just wondering, because we announced a dust-up between the school committee members and the superintendent the last time we met about the stimulus money. A couple of members were questioning what's the story with the stimulus money that we've gotten from the federal government. Where is that going? And I guess the superintendent, it might have been off air, but I guess the superintendent blew up and said, we have so many other things going on and you're asking me about the stimulus money. Well, yeah, that's their job,
Yeah.
So if that's true, I mean, did that have anything to do with Sue deciding not to run? Does anybody know why Sue's not running? And not that it's really anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the things that she was questioning certainly was, the appointment of a director to the DATV. She didn't see a purpose or a need for the school committee to weigh in on that. So
we have a good comment by a person watching. By the way, we have a huge Facebook audience tonight. And Greg Dyersome, he says that Jesse should take a note on how an elected official should properly resign, like Betsy did. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then Kevin Telly says, why are they abandoning the ship? That's my question. All the rats running?
Yeah, it seems like there's a...
Well, I don't know if it's rats.
So I mean, if it truly is 3 members of the school committee, Renee Young, who was just elected last year, is there, and Allison Volpe, who would be up for re-election next year. And Allison would be going in, she would have served 2 full terms. So I mean, where the rotation is typically there to make sure that there's institutional knowledge that's preserved, it certainly is testing that. Yeah,
it is testing it. So, do we have anything else to beat up on about the elections, the town elections? And if anybody else has a question, certainly send it in. I'm trying to monitor that. Angel, you mentioned something about that I keep flipping back and forth between Joe and Joey, and do I mean senior right? I don't quite understand.
Well, I think when you typically refer to Joe Espinola, you refer to him as Joey.
Oh, okay.
Quite often.
Okay.
Because he's a kid.
Oh yeah, no. I'm referring to Joe the senior who's running for selectman. Yeah. He ran the last time, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he run on?
So last year, Joe Espinola did run. There were 5 candidates. There were 2 open seats.
There you go. So, very interesting. So let's move on. Let's talk about Justin George and the firefighter who has been the subject of a total bashing with relation to his free speech and his ability to go on town meeting floor and do what every citizen of the town of Dracut would like to do, particularly participate in town government and make proposals. And he got lambasted for it. And there's all kinds of ramifications that the town has with Justin George. We want to wish Justin well, by the way. He had an accident, he broke his leg, and he's recovering at home. And we wish him well to be well and get better fast. But we want to talk briefly about the MRI report. So, you did some research, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, so what did you have?
Well, just, it was a pretty lengthy report, and basically the top level findings from MRI, and this was a few years ago, and I don't think anything's been done, obviously. And as you know, it's been announced that the fire chief is leaving.
Yep.
So he's going to retire next summer. So, but it was a very damning report from MRI. So they said there's significant internal strife in the department. The prevalent atmosphere of distrust and paranoia between the chief and the firefighters was extreme. There's a disconnect within the department. No one signed up. They asked people to sign up for this interview from MRI. No one signed up because they were afraid that the police chief was going to listen in and find out who was saying what and then take action against those people. So they ended up going to the Legion and having it off-site for these interviews. The staff was afraid that what comments they would make would come back against them. So those were the kind of the findings. So you can see there was a lot of strife in the department, and I don't think it ever got corrected, because after this report came out, it kind of just got brushed under the rug. And the recommendations from MRI, they had 5 major recommendations. One was to rebuild fractured relationships between the firefighters and the chief. Another one was a town union should participate in a labor management initiative, LMI, and they should also develop a formal process for input of operations and feedback. So what a lot of the firefighters wanted to do is have like almost a suggestion box. Say, look, I think we're going the wrong way with this. Like some people thought there was too much training, some people thought there was not enough training. So let's bubble that up to the chief, let him respond to that, and actually provide response back to the whole department. This is a feedback we got, and here's why I think we should do what we're going to do. And that wasn't happening. They should develop. The fourth thing was develop a new sense of shared and common vision, because it seemed like the lieutenants and the chief wanted to go one way, and the older firefighters were kind of like, we're not going to make any changes. We're always going to do what we've always done. And the younger firefighters wanted to do new things and use new firefighting capabilities that Dracut doesn't have. And the
but that costs money, right?
Yeah, well, that, and the old guard was like, hey, it's not broke, we're not going to fix it, kind of thing. And then the fifth one is updated manual of process, policies, and procedures.
Right.
So there was no standard policies and procedures for a lot of the things. So some people would get in trouble for breaking a policy and procedure, but it's not written down anywhere. It was in someone's head. So, and then they would treat one person one way, and if you were in the good old boys network, you'd get a slap on the wrist if
Sounds like national politics.
Exactly. And the biggest thing that I took away from it that I was very flabbergasted about was, there's 2 things. One was that they have no annual review process, because they're a union, so they don't need an annual review process.
But I think they wanted it, though.
They want it, but they don't have one.
Right.
So at least you can get some feedback if you're doing well or you're not doing well from the chief, right? And then the other one was then they had a survey at the end, and there was 15 different questions, like what's the morale, blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of negative comments towards the chief.
Yeah.
And a couple people said that he used the N-word in front of other people. So, and what's happened to the little school committee member that used a anti-Semitic term.
Yeah.
He was asked to leave. So I don't know what happened with this. It seems like it's okay for some people to do some things if they're on the right side of the argument. If they're on the wrong side of the argument, that would have gone a little farther, I think, than it did.
So for the next time we meet in 2 weeks, can you get some of those graphs and show what some of the comments that were made? People chastised this report, right, Phil? And they chastised it, saying that it was those surveys were done anonymously. Do you really think it was anonymous, Phil? I mean, it's anonymous, but it's really not anonymous, because there's only 40
You're dealing with a limited pool of respondents. So
20 firefighters, I think, were interviewed.
And if the responses were handwritten, you know who it is.
Sure. You can kind of interpolate who would talk that way or write that way based on some of the other things they do. So yes, it was anonymous, but based on their comments, how they're written or how they're spoken, then you could figure it out by process of elimination.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing that was accomplished on that report. Station 3 is up and operational now.
Yes.
But that wasn't because of that report.
No, it wasn't.
No.
Again, I don't have to pat you on the back, but the bottom line is the guy sitting at the other end of this set is really responsible for it. He's not even an elected official, but he's the guy that came up with the idea. He pushed the sites. You were intimately involved.
Yeah, I very much took it to heart. I've always had a lot of respect for the firefighters in town, and at a capital planning committee meeting when the chief came in, he said, our number one for the last, I don't know, might have been a dozen years, we need a new Station 3. And I just thought it was terrible that these guys are essentially living, because they're 24 hours, they're living in a garage.
Yep.
So, I looked around, we found some stuff, gave it to Jim Duggan, town manager at the time, and, pushed it through.
Yeah. And do you have any idea of what the speculation is, Gordy or anybody on the panel, what's going to happen to the old fire station? Because I'm going to guess there's going to be politics in it. There's going to be politics in it. There's a local business guy that wants his hands on that.
So my suggestion, not that the town takes them anymore.
Yeah, right.
Is to raise the building and make a municipal parking lot, and then put sidewalks all the way along Lakeview Ave with on-street parking.
But Phil, that would be business friendly.
That would
be something that. And I'm going to guess that Joe Derocco is going to be opposed to that.
Well, the town had applied for a Mass Works grant, I think 2 years ago.
Yes.
And they actually used that idea with my sketch as part of the package.
The town actually said that. So now the town is in a little bit of a box, but it was a different manager. And it was a different time.
That's
so
correct.
Now we have a political manager, and the political manager is controlled by who? Who's the political manager controlled by, Gordy? Do you know?
The man who scuttled the whole town manager search?
The man who scuttled the whole town manager thing, who has done nothing for the fire department, folks, zero for the fire department, serves on the public safety committee, and has done zero. In fact, we're really running out of time, and there's so much more I wanted to talk about.
John, one quick thing is the question you had about the vacancies.
Yeah.
On the charter, it says those are covered under the civil service law of the Commonwealth.
What
of
vacancy?
Of any vacancy of a member body.
Not for school committee, because it's an elected body.
Yeah, well, it says vacancy occurs in any town office or town employment.
Well, that's not.
Or in any municipal multiple member body.
Yeah, it's not an elected.
So it does. That's all it talks about for vacancies.
But you'd have to look under elections and replacement of a. We'll have to get into that.
But I did look that up for you.
Things. Thank you very much. So let's get back into a little bit more about where where do you think it's going to go? I think it should be a municipal parking.
Yeah, I mean, that area has always had trouble with parking. It's certainly, the master plan talked about how try to make these downtown areas more business friendly. Park your car, go to multiple businesses, and that certainly sets it up.
Now, Gordy just touched on the fact of replacing a municipal employee, and that's the fire chief. So the fire chief will be replaced. And now comes the process. And the process was outlined by the personnel director at the last meeting. Do you remember what it was, quickly? Do you remember what the process was? Did you watch that part?
I didn't catch that part.
Okay, so my information is that the process is, because it's a civil service position, they have the option of going to an assessment, or just civil service, or a combination of both, right? And the assessment could allow for the, instead of just wholly taking the list, using an assessment. But my guess is, because of the distaste of what happened with the police chief, and going outside and getting a police chief outside of the department, that they're not going to go that route, that they're going to go.
Because the civil service does allow you to go outside of the department. There's a structure you need to follow. But.
Exactly. So my guess is that there'll be somebody in-house, but it'll all be worked out prior, and I believe that the King the king of the Good Old Boy Network, of the Cabal, he'll have a lot to say about that, because he is, after all, the former fire chief who runs everything, right? So let's move on to the next thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about, national politics. And Joey, I want to hit you with this quickly. I know we only have 3 minutes left. I'm sorry, big guy. Governor Cuomo, his problems with the deaths of the elderly in nursing homes is being overshadowed now by the sexual misconduct allegations. Do you think he survives?
No, I really don't. I think he's done. He's absolutely done.
Do you think he resigns, Gordy?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to resign. He's going to put it out, and hopefully, as time goes on, he's hoping that it's going to just go away.
He's going to kick and scream, right?
Yep.
Phil?
He will resign after blaming everybody else.
And he's done that today. He started doing that today. Cancel culture, folks. Are you serious? We've canceled Dr. Seuss? Are you serious? Canceling the guy who came up, he's the most non-racial person I think that is around. I mean, he's been hundreds of books. Didn't he do the story, The Sneetches?
Yep.
It's
I have a picture on my
Go
computer.
for it. Put it up. Let's put that up. Right?
One has a star and one doesn't have a star.
Now, Barack Obama praised this guy.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, and hopefully...
And Michelle Obama read the book.
Right. Maybe we can get the video for the next show, and we can talk more about this. And we can talk more about the Sneetches and the stars and the ones without the stars. But I wanted to touch briefly about we could talk about the Potato Head, Mr. Potato Head, and Coca-Cola putting out training. We didn't get to any of that tonight, and I want to do that. Next week, I think we're going to start with that the next time we meet. But we want to talk just briefly about censorship. And there's a lot of that going on these days, and people are trying to censor people just because you disagree with them politically or otherwise. The other day, last week, there was a major uproar in Lowell about Robert Hoey, who's a school committee member on the Lowell School Committee, and there is no question, none whatsoever in my mind, that Mr. Hoey made an abhorrent comment that should not have been aired. And unfortunately, in cable TV or in live TV, there is no delay button. There's no way we can do it. But Phil, there is in commercial radio.
That is correct.
So those that are now throwing the bombs at cable TV, trying to censor cable TV, haven't they had a problem where they've aired things that have gone out, particularly about an affair between two public officials in Dracut? That went out.
Yep.
Nobody said a word about it. We'll have more on that.
I think they were looking for the button.
They're still looking for the button. But anyways, folks, we're at the end of the line. I wish we had another half hour. And all I can say at this point is, Gordy, say goodnight to everybody.
Folks, as always, thanks for watching. We're now streaming live on YouTube and Facebook, and of course on Channel 8 on Dracut Access TV. So when it's Wednesday night and it's 7 o'clock, it's What's Happening Dracut. Good night, Dracut.